Hey students, thanks for stopping by. While we're hanging out together, let's do a little math. You bet. Maybe we'll tell a couple jokes. I don't know very many good ones, but we'll kind of do some math first and then maybe try to get to that funny stuff. Hey, so we're going to go ahead and I've got a couple of scenarios here about members and non-members, and we're going to see what we can do in turning them to a table, to a graph, to an equation, kind of move through each one. So encourage new customers. A phone app which allows for movie downloads offers two plans. There's one for members where you pay $80 a year plus $1 per download, and then for non-members it's $4.25 per download. I did change the numbers a little bit because this is an example I've used previous. We need to make one table that shows the number of downloads n and the cost for members. So my number of downloads, so if I know my number of downloads, then that's going to let me know my cost. So my number of downloads will determine kind of my cost here. And so I better do one for members and one for non-members. Non-members. Okay, let's take a look here for both tables. Okay, we're going to go from 0 to 50 movies in increments of 10 according to what this is asking. So 0 increments, so 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Same over here, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And I can build my equation off of this one. So for members, it's going to be my cost is going to be my $80 that I pay right away at the beginning plus $1 per download. So like 1x, and many of you will just write x down for that. And for my second one, my second equation for non-members, my cost is going to be $4.25 x. And really x represents our downloads, which we're using the variable n. So I'm going to replace both of those with just an n. You can keep them as an x if you would like. So let's do a little bit of math here. So for members, members pay $80. So if they do not download any movies, it's going to be $80 because that's the fee they pay right at the beginning. For 10 movies, it is $1 per movie, so it's $10 plus the 80, so they're up to 90. And for 20, 80, 90, so they're the 80. This guy is going to be the 80 plus the 20 that's happening, so that's $100 right here. Ooh, hello, $100 here. That is really bad, $100. There we go. And some of you can now even start to see the pattern, 80, 90, 100. So this is going to be 110. 120, 130. Now for the second group, a little bit different for non-members. If you're a non-member and you download no movies, it's going to be no cost to you. For non-members, if you do 10 movies, it's 10 times 0.25. I get $42.50. So it still looks like that non-members are getting a better deal at 10 downloads. For 20 downloads, I'm going to do 20 times $4.25, and I get 85. So when I compare the two, 85 and 100, it still looks like the non-members get a better deal. 30 downloads times $4.25, I'm up to $127.50. And it looks like, oh, at 30 downloads, it looks like the non-members are starting to pay more. So for 40 downloads, I'm taking 40 times $4.25, and I get 170. And 50 downloads times 425 equals $212.50. So what I'm doing to each one of these, for instance, at the 30, I go up to my equation for non-members, and it is my cost equals 425 times n. And I'm rewriting my equation. My cost is 425, but I'm multiplying it by the number of downloads, which I said is 30. And 30 times 425 is 127.50. Okay, so I have my different tables here, and I can use these now to go ahead and make a graph. Okay, so on the same set of axes, we want to graph this relationship. Okay, I want want to move these around a little bit so I can get to my information. There we go. Now for this first graph, let's see. So my number of downloads. So my downloads. And this will be my cost. Okay. So when I look at my downloads, it looks like I'm going by tens. So I can do that. I can go 0, 10, 20, 30. And I'm going to get bunched up here. I'm going to go by fives. 5, 10, 15. So 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. All right, so each one of those being 5. For cost, it looks like I might be able to go by tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. No, that only gets me to 100. I probably need to go by 20s on this one. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. And how I decided those was just looking at my table, because I want my tables, my two tables here to show up on my graph. And if I pick it too small or too big, they're really not going to represent well. So let's go ahead and do, let's do members. So I'm going to do members in blue. So members, that's these guys. So 0, 80, so there's a dot there. 10, 90. So it's going to be like right between 80 and 100. 20 and 100. It's right there. 30 and 110. So in between. 40 and 120. 50 and 130. So in between. I got a cool little tool here that lets me straighten my line out a little bit. And I can go from here and on, but I got to move my arrow down below. That's not true. This line, there it is. I need to move that down a little bit. There we go. So there's that line. And that's my blue one for members. I'm going to follow that. Okay, so let's do non-members. Non-members. Wow, that is really horrible handwriting. Let me translate here. That must be a B in there somewhere. All right, so let's look at these guys. Non-members, that's at 0, 0, 10. Okay, $42.50 is hard to graph, so I'm going to get it about in the area and then let one of my other ones kind of clean it up a little bit, like 20 and 85. That'll be a little bit easier. So 20 and there's 80. 85 is going to be a little bit above it. I'm going to go right to 40 and 170 because that's a little bit easier. So 60, 70s in the middle, so a little bit higher than that. And I'm going to go ahead and get my fancy line on there. It's going to go from here. I'm going to have to move that again. Up here. And that moves down. And there is my line representing these two. Hey, they do intersect somewhere, which is kind of cool. So those are my two graphs. Non-members are in red, starting at 0 with 0 downloads. At 0 downloads is going to be no money, and my members at 0 downloads will be $80 in blue. So at some point, it is better to be a member than it is a non-member, and that shows up right in this intersection, right there. Let's keep going. What are some other questions? Write an equation that you can use to calculate the cost. We did it. Totally did that. For equation for members, we found out that if we keep it algebraically with the y's and stuff, we see the equation for members was the $80 plus the $1 per download. If we think of it in the context, my cost is my original $80 to start up with, plus $1 per download. For non-members, if we look at it algebraically, it's y equals, I forgot what it was. It's like $4.25. Okay, $4.25. So if we think of it in the story, my cost is going to be $4.25 per download, per each download. What is the slope of each line? Okay, the slope is going to be represented for members. It is going to show up in front of the X. So for members, it is right here. So my slope is 1. For non-members, it shows up right here. It ends up being my coefficient. of each line. And coefficient is the number that sits right in front of the variable. Okay, and that just really tells me, like on E here, what does that slope tell me? It tells me how much per download. So for members, it's $1 per download, as we can see here. And for non-members, it is $4.25 per one download. And to answer that question correctly, I'm looking for per one. So how much for each one, for each download? Explain how you could find the slope from a table, graph, and an equation. Okay, from a table, let's come back here. Let's go back to our table. Remember, we kind of did this a little bit. This is that ratio of rise over run. And another way to look at that is rising on a graph is the y, so it's up and down. And our x is our horizontal, so left to right. And I can use this in my table. So let's look at this here. So I'm gonna look at my members, and I see the change going from 80 to 90 is 10, and from 0 to 10 is 10. So these are representing my y, and these are representing my x. So I'm going to take my y over here, where my y is, and replace it with this 10. And I'm going to take the x over here. I'm going to replace it with the x on this side, which is 10. And 10 over 10 is 1. I'm going to try it in a different spot. I'm going to go from the 100 to the 120. 100 to 120, there's a 20 difference, which is 20. And the same distance, 20 to 40. There's 20 between those, and 20 over 20 equals 1. So my slope for members on a table can show me that it is indeed 1. For non-members, a little bit different here. Let's jump in between these. And I'm grabbing my calculator because I want to be able to calculate these accurately. So I can go from 4250 to 85, and it's going up. So I'm going to take my calculator, I'm doing 85 minus 42.50, and I get 40. Room there. It's a little snug. Let me move this over. And that 30 over. Yikes. There we go. The difference between 85 minus 4250 is 4250. Actually, that kind of makes sense. And then between 10 and the 20 is 10. So my slope is my y, which is 4250, over my x, which is 10. And if I divide that, 4250 divided by 10, I get 4.25, which is my slope. Let me look at it in a different place. Let me look from here to here. Let me go from the 30 to the 50. So 127.50 going to 212.50. So I'm typing in my calculator, 212.50 minus 127.50, and I get 85. Okay, and I'm looking for my ratio, so it's 85 over, gotta check my x, to go from the 30 to 50 is 20. So 85 divided by 20 is 425. And so my slope on the table is 425. And so let's go back to the original question. What's it asking? So from a table, I'm looking at the change. I'm looking at the change in y over the change in x. That's really what's happening. For a graph, a little bit different. So let's go back and take a look at the graph. Again, we're looking for the slope. The slope in a graph. And here is my graph. So the slope, we're looking from point to point. All right, so I've got a point here, and I've got a point here. And I can see that it is, well, let me check that out. That 20, that's 40. Okay, I want to make sure I get the right points here. So this is, I got to check my rise and my run. So it looks like it is rising 20, from 20 to 40, 20, 30, 40. So that's rising 20, and it's running, should be running 5. I think I have some misinformation that I'm reading on my graph because my line is so crazy. This one's really hard to tell. Your graphs hopefully are going to be a little easier too, because what this tells me, which I'm just going to keep going with it, it tells me it's rising 20 over 5, which, so if I look at it, it's 20 over 5, which is telling me it's 4. Well, I guess that's for non-members, so we must be off because it's 425 is what it ends up being. So we're just a little bit off, and I think it's just because my graph is so small. So you got to be careful on those guys. For my $80 one up here, my blue, my members, we're going to find a point that we know. All right, let's look for this one. 0.80, so we know at 0.80 there's a point, and we know at 10.90 there's a point. So it rises from 80 to 90, it rises 10, and it runs 10. So 10 over 10, so it rises 10 and runs 10. And there gets to me, that gets to my 1. Okay, so on a graph, you're looking at rise to run for those ones. And on an equation, we can see back here in our equation, it ends up just being that coefficient. Where is it? It's that number that sits right in front of the variable. So 425 and 1. Nice. Okay, let's take a look here. What information does the y-intercept of each line represent about the membership and non-membership? It really is about how it starts. Okay, so if you're a member, you start. Wow, this is funny. You start at $80, and for non-members, you start at $0. Okay, and to answer the question, you wouldn't say, even though the graph starts at the origin, you would not say non-members start at the origin, because that is true about the graph, but not true about the situation. You want to represent the situation. And for H, what number of downloads will the cost be the same for both members? Okay, the same or equal. Okay, so we knew that it was $80 plus X, and then we know that it is 425X for the other ones, and I'm trying to find when they are equal. Okay, I have X's on both sides, so I'm going to get them both on the same side, so I'm going to subtract an X, one X from both sides, and I end up with 80 equals, so I had 4.25 X's and I took one whole one away, so I'm down to 325 X's. I look at the side with the variable and I see I'm multiplying 3.25, so I'm going to divide by 3.25. Again, I'm doing the opposite of what I see, kind of undoing it. So you can see that here. I am adding X, so I'm undoing it by subtracting X to both sides. I see multiplying to X right here, so I'm undoing it by dividing by X, or by 3.25. So 80 divided by 3.25 ends up being 24.6. So right around at 2425 downloads, they are the same, and we should be able to see that even in our graph. Let's look. 2425 downloads. Yeah, so it's right in here where that's happening. So I'm seeing it right at the 25. Yep, that's where they intersect, at that 24, 25, 26 spot. That's where it is. I hope this helps you out. You can play back any parts that you weren't sure about. Make sure you come with questions. Yeah, do the best you can. Oh, a joke. What did the number 0 say to the number 8? Nice belt.